In this episode, we're going to take a big, messy idea that beginners often hold in their heads, which is the general goal of security, and turn it into a set of clear strategy categories you can use to think and reason with: prevent, detect, respond, recover, and adapt. One reason cybersecurity feels overwhelming at first is that every control, every practice, and every policy can seem like it belongs to one giant bucket called security. But security work has different purposes depending on what stage of trouble you are trying to influence. Sometimes you are trying to stop an attack from succeeding at all. Sometimes you are trying to notice that something is wrong as early as possible. Sometimes you are trying to contain damage and restore normal operations. And sometimes you are trying to learn and improve so the same kind of problem becomes less likely next time. When you learn to categorize a control by its strategic purpose, you start choosing more wisely, because you stop expecting one control to do everything. Prevention is the strategy most people think of first, because it feels like the cleanest outcome. Nothing bad happens. Prevention includes controls that block unauthorized actions, reduce vulnerabilities, and make certain attacks impossible or much harder. Examples at a high level include strong authentication, least privilege, secure configuration, patching, and filtering network traffic. A beginner mistake is believing that prevention is the only strategy that matters, as if good security means stopping everything. The reality is that prevention is essential but never complete, because systems are complex, new weaknesses appear, and attackers look for alternate routes. Another beginner mistake is assuming that a preventative control is either working or not working, like a light switch. Many preventative controls reduce probability rather than guaranteeing outcomes. For example, requiring multi-factor authentication reduces the chance that stolen passwords lead to account takeover, but it does not make takeovers impossible. Prevention is strongest when it is layered and when it targets common, high-impact failure modes. Detection is the strategy that answers a different question. How do we know something is wrong, and how quickly can we know it? Detection includes controls and practices that create visibility, such as logging, monitoring, alerting, auditing, and anomaly detection. Detection can feel less satisfying than prevention because it admits that bad things can happen, but detection is what turns a hidden problem into a manageable one. Many incidents become disasters not because the first compromise happened, but because the compromise went unnoticed for a long time. Detection shortens that window. For beginners, it's important to understand that detection is not only about catching attackers. It is also about catching mistakes, like misconfigurations, accidental data exposure, or policy violations. Detection provides evidence, and evidence supports decisions. Without detection, you may feel secure while being blind, and blindness is one of the most dangerous conditions in cybersecurity. Response is the strategy that begins once something has been detected or suspected, and its goal is to contain and control the situation rather than letting it grow. Response includes incident handling procedures, triage, containment actions, communication, and coordination. A response strategy recognizes that time matters, because attackers often move quickly once they gain access, and systems can deteriorate quickly once a disruption starts. For beginners, response can sound like a high-drama activity reserved for experts, but the fundamentals are simple. Confirm what is happening, limit further damage, preserve the ability to investigate, and restore safety. Response also includes decision-making, like when to isolate a system, when to disable an account, and when to escalate to additional stakeholders. A good response is calm and methodical, which is why having a plan matters. The response strategy is where the human system of roles and responsibilities becomes critical, because even the best technical tools cannot coordinate people automatically. Recovery is the strategy focused on returning to normal operations, restoring services, and ensuring that damage is repaired in a controlled way. Recovery includes restoring from backups, rebuilding systems, validating data integrity, and confirming that the environment is safe to resume normal use. A beginner might assume recovery is simply turning things back on, but recovery is about confidence, not just functionality. If you restore a system without understanding what caused the incident, you may restore the attacker's access or leave the same vulnerability in place. Recovery also includes prioritization, because not every system can be restored at once, and some services matter more than others. Recovery planning often involves thinking in terms of time objectives and data loss tolerance, even if you do not use formal terms. The core idea is that recovery should be predictable and rehearsed, not improvised under pressure. When recovery is strong, incidents are still painful, but they are not existential. Adaptation is the strategy that closes the loop and turns incidents, near misses, and routine observations into long-term improvement. Adaptation includes lessons learned, updating policies and procedures, improving controls, training, and adjusting designs based on what actually happened. This strategy is often overlooked because it does not feel urgent when the incident is over, but it is the strategy that prevents repeating the same failures. Beginners sometimes treat adaptation like a luxury, something you do when you have time. In reality, adaptation is what makes security mature over time. Attackers adapt, and organizations must adapt too. If you do not adapt, your security posture becomes stale while the environment changes, which means the same controls that worked last year may be inadequate today. Adaptation also includes recognizing trends, like repeated phishing themes, recurring misconfigurations, or persistent access review issues, and addressing root causes rather than chasing symptoms. Now that we have the 5 strategies, the next step is understanding how to choose among them wisely, because the right mix depends on context. A useful principle is that you want prevention where you can predict common failures and block them cheaply, detection where uncertainty is high and visibility is critical, response where speed and coordination matter, recovery where continuity is essential, and adaptation always, because learning is never optional in a changing threat landscape. For example, if you are protecting a critical account, prevention might be strong authentication and least privilege, detection might be monitoring login patterns, response might be rapid account lockdown procedures, recovery might be restoring access safely if the account is compromised, and adaptation might be strengthening onboarding and training if compromise occurs through social engineering. The strategies are not competing choices, they are complementary roles. The wisdom comes from recognizing that you cannot spend all your effort in one category and ignore others without creating dangerous gaps. A practical way to internalize this is to think in terms of failure assumptions. If you assume prevention will always succeed, you will invest heavily in blocking and neglect detection and response, which creates blind spots and slow reaction. If you assume prevention will always fail, you may invest heavily in detection and recovery, but you may be leaving easy entry points open that could have been closed cheaply. The balanced view is that prevention reduces risk but does not eliminate it. Detection reveals problems early, response limits damage, recovery restores capability, and adaptation improves the system over time. This balance is closely related to defense in depth because layers often include controls from multiple strategies. A single control might even serve multiple strategies depending on how it is used. For instance, strong access control can prevent unauthorized actions and also create logs that support detection. Backups are primarily recovery, but they also influence response because they allow you to take systems offline without fear of permanent loss. Beginners often struggle with the idea that detection and response are not signs of failure, but signs of maturity. In a mature environment, it is normal to detect suspicious activity and respond before it becomes serious. In an immature environment, problems are often discovered late, sometimes by outsiders, which is far worse. Think of detection like a smoke alarm and response like a fire plan. Having a smoke alarm does not mean you expect your house to burn down. It means you accept that accidents can happen and you want a fast signal if they do. The same is true in cybersecurity. Detection is your early warning system, and response is your practiced ability to act on the warning. Recovery is your ability to restore normal life, and adaptation is your ability to reduce the chance of similar events in the future. When you frame it this way, investing in detection and response feels like building safety, not admitting defeat. Another important consideration is the cost of mistakes, which drives how you allocate effort across the strategies. If the impact of an incident is severe, you want stronger prevention and stronger recovery, because both reduce the chance of catastrophe. If the environment is highly dynamic, like frequent deployments or many changing users, detection and adaptation become especially important because changes introduce new risks and unexpected interactions. If you cannot prevent a certain class of attacks cheaply, you might focus on detection and response instead of over-investing in imperfect prevention. For example, social engineering is hard to prevent completely because it targets human judgment, but you can reduce risk through training, reduce impact through strong authentication, detect suspicious activity through monitoring, respond through rapid account controls, and adapt by improving training and processes. The strategy mix becomes a practical decision, not a philosophical one. It also helps to understand that strategies can fail in predictable ways, and knowing those failure modes helps you design better. Prevention fails when controls are bypassed, misconfigured, or not applied consistently. Detection fails when logs are missing, signals are buried in noise, or alerts are ignored. Response fails when roles are unclear, decisions are delayed, or actions cause unintended disruption. Recovery fails when backups are incomplete, restoration is slow, or integrity is not verified. Adaptation fails when lessons learned are not translated into changes, or when changes are made but not sustained. Seeing these failure modes helps you ask better questions. If you deploy a preventative control, ask how it can be bypassed and how you will know if it is failing. If you deploy detection, ask who is responsible for acting on it and what the response steps are. If you rely on recovery, ask how often restoration is verified. If you value adaptation, ask how changes are tracked and whether they are actually implemented. As you begin using this framework in your thinking, you will notice it makes exam questions easier because many questions are really asking you to choose the best strategy for a situation. A question might describe an environment where breaches are inevitable and ask what is most important, which often points toward detection and response. Another might describe a common vulnerability and ask the best control, which may point toward prevention. Another might describe downtime risk and ask what reduces business impact, which points toward recovery. Another might describe repeated incidents and ask what to do next, which points toward adaptation. When you can map the situation to the strategy category being tested, you avoid being distracted by plausible but mismatched answers. This is a beginner-friendly way to build judgment, because you are not just memorizing controls, you are understanding what role they play. By the end of this episode, the core takeaway is that good security is not a single tactic. It is a balanced set of strategies that work together across time. Prevent tries to stop bad outcomes. Detect tries to notice trouble early. Respond tries to contain and control. Recover tries to restore. And adapt tries to improve so the system gets stronger rather than repeating the same pain. When you choose strategies wisely, you stop expecting perfection from one control and start designing resilience across the full life cycle of risk. This framework will keep showing up as we talk about access control, network security, governance, and incident handling, because every security topic can be understood in terms of what it prevents, what it detects, how it supports response, how it enables recovery, and how it informs adaptation. If you keep these 5 verbs in your mind as categories, you will have a powerful way to organize security thinking and to make smarter decisions under exam pressure.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.